The water type in Pokemon is the single most common typing in the game, and with so many Pokemon fitting under that umbrella, there's bound to be some bangers here and there. But I think that begs the question, how strong is a team of only water type Pokemon? That's what I sought out to find out when I began this run. I decided to use only water type Pokemon to take on Pokemon HeartGold. But on my channel, restricting Pokemon usage is not the only rule in these challenges. I will also be imposing the Hardcore Nuzlocke rule set that you see on screen in order to find out if water types really are worth all the hype. Without further ado, let's begin the run. We begin our run by heading over to Professor Elm's laboratory and pick our starter. Obviously, since we're using water types, our starter is Totodile. I nickname our newly obtained Totodile Wilma and then head over to Professor Oak so that I could get my Pokedex. Once we obtain the Pokedex, we're called by Professor Elm letting us know that there's been a robbery. So I start to make my way back. And on the way, I run into a guy who just so happens to have another starter from said laboratory. We end up having a battle where Wilma just beats up his Chikorita, and then he runs off spouting something about being the best Pokemon trainer in the world or something. But unfortunately for him, I happened to see his name on a trainer card that he left behind. When the officer asked me, I tell him that his name was the Sun, because it's the enemy to all water on the planet. Now we can start our actual Pokemon journey, but not before we're taught how to catch a Pokemon by our rival. During this brief tutorial, I'd like to remind you all to please subscribe to the channel as I'm really close to hitting 1,000 subscribers. My upload schedule might be a little inconsistent, but trust, I think I'll lock in for the future. Anyways, with that shameless plug out of the way, it's time to continue our journey as we head over to Violet City. From here, we gotta climb up Bellsprout Tower, and then we gotta fight this guy who has a suspicious amount of Bellsprouts, and then we can get out of here and head over to the first gym where we can fight our first gym leader. Faulkner is the flying type gym leader, and to start off, he sends out Pidgey. I obviously send out Wilma because that's all I have, and I open up on turn 1 with a bite from Wilma. Pidgey lives on 1 HP and retaliates with a tackle. Last to come up for Faulkner is a Pidgeotto, and we trade bites and gusts while Pidgeotto occasionally uses Roost, until finally I hit a critical hit. However, I am insanely low on HP. On the final turn, Pidgeotto hits me with a tackle, but fortunately I survive on 1 HP and I'm able to end the battle with one final bite. With that, we win our first gym battle and obtain our first gym badge. On our way to the next city, we're able to stop at a Pokemon Center and finally obtain ourselves an old rod. With the old rod, we're able to fish up a ton of encounters. Those encounters include a Wooper, who I name Wendy, a Magikarp, who I name Whitney, a Poliwag, who I name William, a Goldeen, who I name Warren, a Slowpoke, who I name Willow, and last but certainly not least, a Krabby, who I name Winston. After all those new additions to our team, it's time to face off against Bugsy. Bugsy leads off with Scyther, while I lead off with Winston. Turn 1, Scyther just wastes time going for a Focus Energy, while Winston lands a very strong Rock Tomb that barely misses the KO. On turn 2, Scyther wastes time going for a Leer, but of course she's not punished as Krabby misses a Rock Tomb. This means on turn 3, Scyther is free to get off a Quick Attack, and Winston retaliates with one final Rock Tomb to take down Scyther. Once Scyther goes down, the next to come in is Metapod. Once Metapod comes in, I switch out to Wilma on a tackle. From here, Wilma just uses a bunch of bites to take out the Metapod, and then the final Kakuna to win us the second gym badge. Once we leave and head outside, we find ourselves another rival battle. The Sun leads with Ghastly, while I lead with Wilma. Turn 1, Ghastly goes for a mean look, and Wilma retaliates with a really strong bite that takes down Ghastly in a single hit. Bayleaf is the next one to come out, and a Poison Powder poisons Wilma, while a bite deals a little bit of chip damage. Next turn, Wilma switches out to William, while Bayleaf sets up a Reflect. On the next turn, William misses a Hypnosis, and Bayleaf heals up with a Synthesis. Then, once again, William misses another Hypnosis, while Bayleaf sets up another Poison Powder. Hypnosis finally lands on the third turn, and then I switch out to Warren. From here, Warren just uses Peck a bunch of times, while Bayleaf just refuses to attack back, until eventually Bayleaf goes down with Warren still at full HP. Next to come in for the Sun is Zubat, but Zubat just ends up going down to 2 Water Pulses from Warren, and we're able to beat our rival. And as a little bonus reward, Wilma evolves into a Croconaw. From here, nothing of note really happens until we get to the third gym where we face off against Whitney and her run-ending Miltank. Whitney leads with Clefairy, while I lead with Winston the Krabby. Turn 1, Winston outspeeds and lands a Rock Smash that lowers Clefairy's defense, while Clefairy just misses a Double Slap. This is optimal because Winston gets to take down Clefairy without taking any damage. This means we have a very healthy Krabby that can duel this Miltank to the end. Or so I thought. As Winston and Miltank trade rock smashes and stomps, I realize Winston can't finish the job after Miltank heals from being low HP. Fortunately, this heal doesn't come for free as Miltank has taken 2 defense drops. From here, I can switch out to Wendy, land a rock smash for a little bit of extra chip, and finally swap into the bulky Wilma to land one final rock smash and win us the 3rd gym. With a new level cap, we're able to evolve Wendy into a Quagsire, who immediately gets usage in our next battle against our rival. Speaking of which, it's time to face off against the Sun in the Burnt Tower. He leads off with Ghastly while I lead off with Winston. Turn 1 Ghastly goes for a mean look while Winston just retaliates with a strong Metal Claw. This prompts a switch out to Magnemite, who tanks a Metal Claw that would have been fatal for Ghastly. Because of Wendy's phenomenal typing, I'm able to switch to Magnemite safely. Then next turn Wendy can use Dig, and a turn later Magnemite gets one shot and goes down. Next to come in is Bayleaf, and because of Wendy's awful typing, I need to switch out to another Pokemon. My Pokemon of choice is Warren, who tanks a Magical Leaf and survives, and gets off a good amount of chip damage with Peck. Unfortunately, this does mean Warren goes down, but to be honest, it's not a very good Pokemon anyways. This means Wilma gets a safe switch in, and she's able to land a strong Ice Fang that just barely misses the KO. Fortunately, Bayleaf wastes time going for a Poison Powder, and next turn a Rock Smash is able to guarantee the KO on Bayleaf. Next to come in is Zubat, and from here I pivot around until Wendy's in, and then I let this Stat Sponge just handle the last 2 Pokemon until we can finally, once again, claim victory against the Sun. With that taken care of, we can start heading our way to the 4th gym. But before we get there, we get 2 new upgrades on our team in the form of 2 more evolutions. First, William becomes a cute little Poliwhirl. I mean, come on, that sprite is adorable. And secondly, and probably more importantly, Whitney becomes a Gyarados. This is probably like a top 3 Pokemon in this entire game, so you know this is powerful. And this strength is put on full display, as against Morty in the 4th gym, Whitney is able to sweep Morty's entire team of ghost types by using only Bite and breaking 0 sweat. With that Haunter finally dropping, that means we finally obtained the 4th gym badge. As I continue on my journey, I take a little intermission by visiting this theater, only to find this Team Rocket Grunt who is freaking out on stage. We quite literally knock some sense into him, and then it's time to continue on. After that, we get access to the HM Surf, as well as a good rod, which nets us a couple new encounters. Wanda the Tentacle and Winslow the Staryu are both vital additions to this team. Not only that, but we find a Chinchou who we name Wessler, who is also a pretty good addition. We also get some new upgrades in the form of some evolutions because of the new level cap. Wanda becomes a goated Tentacruel, Winston becomes a Kingler, Wilma becomes a Feraligatr, and last but not least, Willow becomes a Slowking. With those upgrades out of the way, it's time to head over to the 5th gym. Here we face off against Chuck and his fighting types. Chuck leads with Primeape while I lead with Willow. Turn 1 Primeape goes for a double team, but it's for naught as Willow lands a Confusion right after. Then Chuck heals on the next turn, while Confusion brings Primeape back down to 1 HP. Primeape then misses a Rock Slide and finally goes down to a 3rd Confusion. Last up is Chuck's Poliwrath, who misses a Hypnosis and takes about 40% from a Confusion. A Body Slam from Poliwrath does just over a 5th of Willow's HP, while a Confusion brings Poliwrath down to the point where he heals with a Citrus Berry. Poliwrath then lands a Body Slam that doesn't do anything, and a Confusion is enough to win us the battle. From here we gotta head over to the lighthouse in Olivine City. Here we find Jasmine and an Ampharos who is sick. Jasmine then tasks us with finding the medicine for the Ampharos, which we eventually do at a pharmacy, and bring back the medicine to the Ampharos so that she can keep on lighting up the lighthouse. Afterwards, Wessler becomes a Lantern, and it's time to face off against Jasmine. She leads with Magnemite while I lead with Wendy. Wendy outspeeds the Magnemite and takes it down in a single dig, and next to come out for Jasmine is Steelix. A Surf brings Steelix down to low HP, but then heals up with a Citrus Berry, and Steelix retaliates with a weak Iron Tail. Next turn, Wendy lands another Surf to take down Steelix, and last to come in is another Magnemite. But just like the first Magnemite, it too also goes down in a single dig. With that, we've completed the 6th gym. Before we can continue on, we have to take a detour over to the Lake of Rage. Here we find a weird discolored Gyarados that makes no sense to be red, so we put it out of its misery with a single Thunderbolt. From here we head over to a Team Rocket base, where we battle against a guy who's pretending to be Giovanni. Now I'm no gangster mob boss, but if I were Giovanni, I would not take that disrespect. Anyways, once he's dealt with, we have to head over to help out Lance, who's in another part of the facility. I'm not really sure why he needs my help in this double battle, considering he is literally the champion of the Pokemon League, but whatever, I guess I can lend him Willow's help for now. Afterwards, we can head over to the 7th gym, where I get stuck on this ice puzzle for far too long considering I'm a grown man, and then we can challenge the leader Price and his ice types. He leads with Seal, while I lead with Wessler. Turn 1, Seal gets outsped and gets one-shot by a single Thunderbolt, and next to come in is Piloswine. A Surf from Wessler just barely doesn't take the KO, but Piloswine just wastes time going for a Hail. But I guess it wasn't a waste, cause next turn, a Surf misses the Piloswine and Wessler takes damage from a Mud Bomb. Fortunately, those antics don't keep up and a Surf is able to take down Piloswine next turn. Last to come in for Price is a Dugong. Wessler does about 80% with a Thunderbolt, while an Aurora Beam doesn't quite take down Wessler. One final Thunderbolt later, and Wessler claims victory over the 7th gym. Once this gym is complete, we're finally able to get our hands on a Water Stone so we can evolve Winslow into a Starmie. From here, we gotta infiltrate a Team Rocket base so we can finally go deal with them once and for all, and I try to sneak in by dressing up like a regular grunt. But unfortunately, I get caught. So that plan's a bust, and then my rival decides to battle me for like no reason I think, so he leads with Golbat and I lead with Winslow. Winslow just barely misses a KO with an Ice Beam, while Golbat just responds with a weak Air Cutter. An Ice Beam then takes down Golbat, and next to come in is Meganium. An Ice Beam does about 60%, while Meganium retaliates with a strong Petal Dance. Fortunately though, Meganium sucks, and even a 120 base power Grass move isn't enough to take down Winslow. This means Winslow gets to fire off another Ice Beam to take down Meganium. Next to come in is Haunter, and I switch out to Wilma on a Shadow Ball. Wilma fortunately takes 2 of them, and a Crunch is enough to take down Haunter in a single hit. Next to come in is Magnemite, but just like all the other Magnemites, they're just a Wendy victim. Last for the Sun is a Sneasel, who just goes down to 2 Rock Smashes. With that, the Sun goes away for another day, and then we can continue forward to another battle with Executive Ariana. This one is pretty simple as Wanda takes down Arbok in 2 Surfs, but unfortunately gets paralyzed in the process. An Ice Beam takes down Murkrow, and lastly, Wanda with her monster special defense and HP stat is able to face tank Vileplume until it eventually goes down to a couple Ice Beams. Then, immediately after, we have to face off against Archer, who has a Houndour that gets handled by Wanda, and Whitney cleans up the Houndoom and the Coughing. From here, we can head over to Blackthorn City where we can challenge the 8th and final gym. Here, we face off against Claire and her Dragon types. She leads with Gyarados while I lead with Winslow. Winslow outspeeds turn 1 and lands a Thunderbolt to take down Gyarados in a single hit. Next to come in is Dragonair, who gets brought down to about 10% HP from an Ice Beam. A Thunder Wave paralyzes us, so I decide to switch out to Wanda, while Dragonair heals to full HP. Another Ice Beam brings Dragonair down to about 15%, while it launches another Thunder Wave. I decide to just send it and have Wanda take down Dragonair with another Ice Beam, and Claire sends out a second Dragonair. That Dragonair hits Wanda with a Slam, and Wanda gets fully paralyzed so that she can't retaliate. Dragonair then goes for another Slam that misses, and Wanda gets fully paralyzed for a second time. So I decide to switch out to Wilma, who takes minimal damage on the switch-in, and an Ice Fang deals about 70%, while also freezing the Dragonair. Next turn, I guarantee the KO with a Crunch, and last for Claire is her Kingdra. Kingdra lands a Dragon Pulse that brings Wilma pretty low, but an Ice Fang freezes the Kingdra again. From here, I switch out to Winslow, but Kingdra thaws out immediately and launches another Dragon Pulse. Kingdra launches another Dragon Pulse next turn, but Winslow hangs on and launches a Thunderbolt for some chip. From here, I switch out to Whitney on a Dragon Pulse, but she gets crit and nearly dies, so I gotta switch out again to Wendy. Fortunately, she comes in safely, and Kingdra decides to go for a Smokescreen, while I click Waterfall for literally no reason. I don't even know why. Kingdra goes for a Dragon Pulse that deals just under half HP, and Wendy lands an Earthquake that brings Kingdra down to about 25%. Kingdra then misses a Hydro Pump, and Wendy gets a high roll with an Earthquake to take down Kingdra and finally win us the 8th gym badge. But unfortunately, Claire is a sore loser, and she makes me head over to the Dragon Den so I can take this pointless test and actually obtain my gym badge. But finally, now that I have my 8 badges, I have to head over to Ecruteak City so I can meet up with the Kimono Girls. Here, I battle each of them and their evolutions until I've cleared them all, and then I head to the top of the dance theater so that I can face off against Ho-Oh. My trusty Winslow makes quick work of said Ho-Oh, and then I can finally make my way over to Victory Road. Before I could exit to get to the Pokemon League, my arch nemesis, the Sun, stops me. He decides that here in Victory Road will be our final climactic battle. I accept, and he leads with Sneasel while I lead with Whitney. Sneasel outspeeds and lands a feint attack, but because of the Intimidate, it doesn't deal that much damage. In response, Whitney lands a Waterfall that takes down Sneasel in one hit. Next for the Sun is his Magnemite, but of course, he's not safe either. Like all the other ones of its kind, Wendy comes in and absolutely decimates Magneton with an Earthquake. Next for the Sun is his Meganium, and I switch out to Wanda on a Petal Dance. An Ice Beam does just under half HP, and then I'm forced to switch out because of all the damage from Petal Dance. From here, I switch into Whitney, who lands an Ice Fang that barely misses a KO, but Meganium just takes themselves out by just hitting themselves from confusion. Next to come out is Haunter, but a Bite just handles that very quickly, and next to come in is a Kadabra. Kadabra uses Disable, which buys some time as Whitney is unable to go for a Bite again, until I switch out to Wilma and land 2 bites in order to take down Kadabra. Last to come out is Golbat, who lands a critical hit Air Cutter that deals no damage, and an Ice Fang does a decent amount of chip. So to end off this battle, I send in Winslow to land one last Ice Beam and finally rid us of the Sun. With that rival battle finally being completed, we're able to head over to the Pokemon League so we can challenge the Elite Four. And so, now that we've finally arrived at the Elite Four, here's our final 6 who will hopefully carry us all the way and help us defeat Lance. First up in our Elite Four challenge is Will and his Psychic types. He leads with Xatu while I lead with Whitney. Turn 1, Whitney goes for a Dragon Dance, while Xatu just lands a Confuse Ray. Next turn, Whitney just doesn't care about the confusion and breaks through to land a Bite anyways, taking down Xatu in one hit. Next to come out for Will is his Jinx. This turn, I fly too close to the Sun and end up hitting myself with Confusion. Jinx then hits me with a Psychic that puts me just below half HP, but next turn I snap out of Confusion and land a Bite to one-shot Jinx. Next to come in for Will is Executor, who ends up getting one-shot by an Ice Fang that was super effective. Next for Will is Slowbro, and she takes a Bite, living on around 20%, but ends up flinching so is unable to attack me. Next turn, Whitney just lands a Bite to finish off the Slowbro, and last to come in is his second Xatu, but she also just ends up getting destroyed by a Bite, and we win our first battle in the Elite Four. Next up in our Elite Four escapade is Koga and his Poison types. Koga leads with Ariados while I once again lead with Whitney. Turn 1, I go for Dragon Dance while Ariados just traps me with Spiderweb. By the way, as a side note, let me know if you even knew Spiderweb was a move because I did not know that existed. Anyways, on the next turn, I set up a second Dragon Dance while Ariados just lands a Poison Jab that fortunately doesn't poison me. On the third turn, I get a little greedy and go for a third Dragon Dance, but fortunately we're not punished by a Poison Jab poison. And on the fourth turn of the battle, we're finally able to take down Ariados with a Waterfall. Next to come in for Koga is Fortress, but since Sturdy doesn't work like it does in Gen 5, I'm able to take it down in one hit with another Waterfall. Next to come in is Muck, but it also goes down to a single Waterfall. Koga's Crobat then comes in and gets destroyed by another Waterfall. Next up is Venomoth, and you guessed it, it goes down to another Waterfall. And with that, we have defeated Koga and the second battle in the Elite Four. Next up is Bruno and his fighting types. He leads with Hitmontop while I lead with Whitney. Turn 1, Hitmontop goes for a quick attack that deals a decent chunk due to a critical hit, while Whitney just sets up a Dragon Dance. Then, one Waterfall later, Hitmontop goes down in a single hit. Next to come in is Onix, but you already know the drill, and Onix falls to a single Waterfall. Next to come in is Hitmonchan, who also gets taken down by a single Waterfall. Fourth up for Bruno is Machamp, who just barely survives on a sliver from a Waterfall, and a Rock Slide critical hit takes down Whitney. What an unbelievably unfortunate loss for our team, especially right before the champion. But we got a battle to finish, so I send in Winslow, who takes down Machamp with a Surf, and next to come in is Hitmonlee. A strong Surf brings him just under half, while Hitmonlee just misses a Swagger. One last Surf takes down Hitmonlee, and with that we defeat Bruno and win us our third battle in the Elite Four. However, that victory came with a loss, and now we have to face our last two battles without Whitney. First of which is the final member of the Elite Four, Karen. She leads with Umbreon while I lead with Wanda. Turn 1, Wanda goes for a Surf that deals about 20%. Umbreon then goes for a Double Team. However, the Double Team means nothing as the Surf brings down Umbreon to about 30%. Then Umbreon hits us with a pretty strong payback, and then I switch out to Wilma. Another payback does minimal damage, and Wilma takes on Umbreon with a Waterfall. Next for Karen is Vileplume, and I switch out back to Wanda. Vileplume just misses a Stun Spore, and an Ice Beam from Wanda does just over half. Vileplume misses a second Stun Spore, and Wanda just takes down Vileplume with an Ice Beam. Next to come in is Murkrow, who gets taken down in a single hit by a single Ice Beam from Wanda. Next to come in is Houndoom, who tanks his Surf and barely survives on a Sliver, but wastes a turn going for Nasty Plot. Next turn Wanda is able to take her down, and last to come out is Gengar. On the first turn, Gengar goes for Spite, lowering my Surf PP, while Surf does a clean half. Gengar just wastes time going for a Focus Blast that does no damage, and a Surf is able to end the battle and finally finish the Elite Four. And with that, we gain the right to challenge Lance, the champion. It's been a long challenge, but we gotta win it here. For Whitney. As we open up the battle, Lance leads with Gyarados and I lead with Winslow. Winslow outspeeds and lands a Thunderbolt that cleanly takes down Gyarados in a single hit. Next for Lance is his first Dragonite, who is swiftly dealt with by a single Ice Beam. Next for Lance is his second Dragonite, who eventually meets the same fate. Next to come in is his Aerodactyl, who lands a Crunch that deals a clean half, while a Surf brings him down to what seems like 1 HP. Since I know Lance is gonna heal this turn, I decide to use Recover. On the next turn, Aerodactyl uses Crunch again, while I use Surf but actually take him down this time. Next to come in for Lance is his Charizard, and I click Recover to try and get some HP back. But that HP gets taken away immediately by a Shadow Claw. So instead, I launch a Surf, and unfortunately it does not take the KO. This means we'll have to give one final goodbye to Winslow as it goes down to a Shadow Claw critical hit. I send out Wanda, but Lance heals so a Surf isn't able to KO Charizard immediately. But that doesn't matter, as Wanda is able to swiftly avenge Winslow with a second Surf. Last for Lance is his third and final Dragonite, and Wanda outspeeds to land an Ice Beam that doesn't quite KO the Dragonite, but freezes him at the same time. Which means Wanda is able to land a second Ice Beam for free and take down the final Dragonite and Lance's final Pokemon. And with that, we have completed the Water type only challenge in Pokemon HeartGold. I would like to thank you for watching all the way through if you did, and I hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment saying rest in peace Whitney if you got this far.